Entrepreneurs who have built their business with no outside capital understand the skill it takes and greatly appreciate when seeing others who have done it. Ecommerce has been growing 50% each year for the past 12 years and now has approximately 400 employees. The secret to their success is a combination of favorable market conditions and a culture which emphasizes entrepreneurship and empowerment. We spoke with their CEO, Michiel Schipperus, who built the B2B e-commerce software company from the start. It was hatched as a spin-off from an IT services company that recognized the need for a productized solution. The spin-off ended up being wildly successful as e-commerce has continued to manifest as a megatrend. Listen to Michiel as he describes more about the company today, as well as what has contributed to their success. Welcome to the Growth Cap podcast, where we chat with CEOs, investors, and other key industry leaders to uncover insights and strategies for accelerating growth and succeeding in business. I'm your host, RJ Lumba. We hope you enjoy the show. So, Michiel, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. A pleasure to be with you. Maybe for our audience, we could kick off with a little bit of background on yourself as well as Ecommerce, and you can do that in whichever order you prefer.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks for having me. So, let's start with Ecommerce. I think that's easier. So we're a software company, e-commerce, B2B e-commerce to be more specific. So we have built our own e-commerce platforms specifically for wholesale distribution manufacturing companies. And even more specifically, so for companies that run either Microsoft Dynamics or SAP as their ERP system. That's really our niche, basically, that we operate in. A strong performer in the Forrester Wave, outperforming companies like SAP and Oracle. Nice competition there. Ecommerce has around 400 people, 8 countries that we have offices in, including the US, UK, Germany, headquartered in the Netherlands, but also offices in Colombia, Ukraine, Australia, Sri Lanka, and Dubai. Over the past few years, I've seen a 50% year-over-year growth. So we might touch upon that later. And personally, I'm the CEO already for many, many years. The whole idea of Ecommerce came to life about 12 years ago. It's actually a spin-off of a different company that was more services oriented. And about 12 years ago, we started to build our own product as our own IP and pursuing a growing portfolio of customers and also more recurring revenue model. And actually, I was already in that previous services company, and I kind of spun out Ecommerce from that. So Dutch-based, Dutch-born, living in Rotterdam, studied economics and business, and kind of fell into this whole adventure, so to speak. Already now, exactly to this date, it's 21 years ago since I joined this company, and I'm only 39 years old. So that's a bit about myself.
Oh, thank you. That's a great background. And the interesting thing here is that the company spun out of an IT services firm. And we've seen that before in the past where there have been, very successful products that have come about because an IT services organization saw the need firsthand from the client base.
Exactly. I think it's a very good formula because you get so much first-hand experience of what is broken when it comes to the customer. And they, if you have 5 customers in a month ask you to build something that because it isn't there yet, it's like, oh, wait a minute, are we going to do this time and time again and customize this, or is this is there a real need to productize it? And that's exactly what happened with us. Let's say around 12 years ago.
And is the software solution, completely proprietary, or is it built upon other platforms?
No, it's proprietary. Of course, leveraging many technologies like React, and of course running on the different cloud systems, including Microsoft Azure Cloud. And it's really, our unique value proposition, so to speak, is that we make ERP and e-commerce work as one, which is absolutely crucial for wholesale distribution manufacturing companies that want to sell online, especially because they have so much information and functionality in the ERP system that is relevant for their customers to do self-service, to place orders. So we make ERP and e-commerce work as one. So we work very closely with the ERP systems, but it's by itself, it's proprietary software, I would say.
E-commerce typically is thought of in the B2C space. Thinking about it from the B2B perspective, I mean, how is the kind of user experience? Is it truly as easy and intuitive from a B2B standpoint?
Yeah, it needs to be, right? Because these B2B buyers are also consumers. So that has set the bar for them. So yeah, it needs to be super intuitive, but it's very different, right? If you are in a B2B setting and you buy from a supplier, like maybe every week or every other week, you expect an even more personalized experience, right? Because there is so much data that can be used to personalize this online experience. So what we can do, for instance, we can predict already the kind of products that you would be looking for based on previous buying behavior, which you could to some extent do, of course, in a B2C setting. But the relationship typically between, especially for our customers, between a supplier and a B2B customer is much more intense and personal typically than the relationship any consumer has with its retail store.
Mm-hmm. Switching gears a little bit, you've grown the organization. I mean, that's fantastic growth to be able to do 50% year over year. What do you think has been key to that? Has it been, tailwinds? Is it a bit of macro and a bit of micro, meaning, you've had some favorable dynamics in the market, but then at the same time, you've set up an organization that is particularly adept at execution?
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. There's definitely tailwind as a result of COVID now. There's extra opportunity, I think, for many businesses. But already, I would say for 10 or maybe even 20 years, e-commerce is a mega trend. And I would say for wholesale distribution manufacturing companies, over the past 5 to 10 years, there has been a lot of demand from these companies. So to be honest, there's a lot of, I wouldn't say good, just luck, but that makes everything easier, right? If demand is growing. At the same time, it's also a very competitive landscape. There's so many e-commerce platforms. I estimate there will be more than 5,000 different e-commerce platforms in the world with some size, but so there's also a lot of competition. So you need to be different. You need to bring something unique. Otherwise, you will just remain one of these many thousands. And of course, I already mentioned we're part of the Forrester Wave for B2B e-commerce. Well, that puts us among the top 12 B2B e-commerce platforms in the world, and even a strong performer among the top 6. So give some perspective. You need to do something unique, provide unique value to stand out from all these many e-commerce platforms that are out there. And I think that was actually what we uncovered 12 years ago when we said, okay, if we want to fix this issue for also distribution manufacturing companies, we need to rethink e-commerce for these businesses. And that actually led us to the conclusion that we should make the e-commerce platform and the ERP system really work seamlessly as one system, especially taking the perspective of the customer, of our customers.
And clearly you need to have an organization that's able to, fulfill the promise and kind of meet the opportunity.
Yeah.
What do you do organizationally to ensure, you have a highly kind of engaged and productive team?
Yeah, I think one of the things we do very well is empower people. We have a core value we call entrepreneurial. We're looking for people who are entrepreneurial in a way that they come in and we empower them to come up with their own ideas. And we empower them to embrace change and be part of the change, because that's obviously what you constantly need to do if you're growing the business. You're in a constant state of change. And you need people to drive this change and to adopt and embrace this change. So therefore, I think what we have done very well from the beginning is bringing people in, empowering them, saying, okay, you know so much about marketing, or you know so much about a specific region, and really giving them the confidence, the tools, but most importantly, the responsibility to take matters in their own hand, basically, if that makes sense. So our core value of entrepreneurial, and personally, I'm also an example of that, I would say, because, I joined this company, like I said, 21 years ago when I was just 18 years old. And at some point, I also was given the responsibility to some extent determine the direction that the company was going in, and eventually led to Sana. And that's what we continuously doing to really give people ownership of their own part of the organization.
And as you kind of in the earlier days, as you were scaling, spinning out and scaling the organization, was this completely bootstrapped or did you have some capital?
Bootstrap in the sense that, of course, our services part of the business was generating revenue, or cash basically. And for many, many years, we used the profits we make on the services side. We invested that back in the product. So we never took outside capital.
That's phenomenal when you can kind of make that happen on a standalone basis.
Yeah.
And so do you think, for the foreseeable future, obviously you've got the tailwinds, you've got a strong organization that you can continue to grow at this accelerated pace. Are there certain things that you think may be challenging in order to kind of actually sustain the high level of growth?
Yes, it's a good question. And actually, it's a question we're asking ourselves almost on a quarterly basis. It's so hard to predict how everything is changing, right? And how fast, what opportunities may arise. So let's say I don't anticipate anything for 2021 in terms of outside capital, but we are always challenging ourselves. If we would bring in capital, could we go faster? And we will continue to do that. So I kind of think I know for the foreseeable future, but it's constantly on the agenda. Maybe there's an opportunity to do a nice acquisition, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a lot of acquisitions going on in e-commerce, and there are a lot of technologies that could complement our offering. So it's definitely something that we discuss. And if the opportunity arises, maybe that would be a good point to look for such an opportunity or take that direction. For now, it's not on the short term, it's not on the agenda.
And we talked about, COVID-19 a moment ago. How has it, just to get a little bit more into that, we've seen how it's impacted on the B2C side, and presumably the B2B is kind of the, earlier part of that kind of chain of events, in order for the B2C to meet their demand. How has it impacted, I guess, the market in a more specific sense in what you do? And then, maybe even has it impacted your organization, like how you operate?
Yeah, and of course we get this question a lot. This is the top conversation at the coffee machine, and when talking with other entrepreneurs, like how's your business impacted? And my answer is at the moment it's a mixed picture. So at one hand, we see companies that are heavily impacted or have had factories that have been shut down for a while. And some of them are reluctant to make big investments now. At the other side of the spectrum, there are companies that now much better even understand the value of B2B e-commerce and the absolute need for their business to go online. I had a conversation with a customer, and they said, our way of selling is going on site, visiting our customers, and that's how we sell. And we cannot do that. And in the foreseeable future, they already got letters from some of the customers saying, hey, we're closing the office for at least until the end of the year. So they need something else. So they accelerated their decision on investing in their digital channels. So it's a mixed picture. Some are heavily impacted, saying, okay, we stick with what we have. We're not investing at the moment. Other customers are really speeding up and seeing the opportunity. There are many, many wholesale distribution manufacturing companies that have been thinking about selling online or investing more in the B2B e-commerce channels, but didn't so far, being a bit more conservative maybe, and that now say, okay, now COVID is the trigger event for them to really put it on top of their priority list. So it's a mixed picture, and at the moment it's kind of balancing out for us.
And how long would it take if it's a bit reactionary, from the pandemic for an organization, presumably a sizable organization, to say, okay, now we're going to try this, B2B e-commerce and implement it. If they were to do that, how long would it actually take to be up and running?
Well, we can do it within 2 weeks. And
wow.
But and it's even more wow than you would guess, because of course you can put any e-commerce platform, probably within a number of minutes, you swipe your credit card, you can have a e-commerce platform running. However, our approach is different, right? We make ERP and e-commerce work as one, which makes this more complex because we need to have these APIs and make them work with the ERP system. So that makes it a bit more challenging. So it's not a 5-minute process, but we have done it, especially in COVID times, where some of our customers pivoted and they suddenly started to manufacture hand sanitizers. And they told us, right, we cannot, process all these orders in the old school way. So yeah, we can do a 2-week implementation, fully integrated, seamlessly integrated with their ERP system. So to be honest, that is pretty wow.
Now, switching back to, how you've built this organization and kind of the growth dynamics, and you're relatively young, just, in terms of the universe of CEOs out there, and you've been able to accomplish, quite a bit. What has helped you, either, kind of mindset wise or just, how you think on a day-to-day basis? What do you think has most helped you kind of, get to where you are today?
I think, and what I hear from the people around me is being super open to feedback. So not being the CEO that thinks he knows it all, right? When it comes to the decision making, I really rely, and I'm very lucky to have very talented people around me, and I very much rely on them to make decisions. In the end, I need to make the decisions, of course, but I value their opinions quite a bit. And I appreciate the feedback I get, and not just from my leadership team, actually from everyone in the organization, especially the people on the front lines, right? The people talking to the customers. I want to hear, and that's also the culture we have built. I want them to speak up when they hear something that's valuable, and it can really make a big difference to our strategy. So I think the being open to feedback on the level of, okay, what's the strategy we're pursuing, but also for personal development, saying, hey, what can I improve as a CEO? I recognize that in order to be a successful CEO in 3 years' time, I cannot be the CEO that I am today, right? So I need to learn. I need to listen to these people and figure out what I need to change in my practice and my approach to still deserve to have the CEO title in 3 years' time. I think that's what will keep challenging me if we want to keep being on this journey of growth, if that makes sense.
And is there someone, either personally or professionally that you've worked with or observed from, in the past where you've said, that person is a model for me that I'd like to, kind of acquire some of the traits that they have and the way they lead and work with others?
I think from a personal level, I would say it's not very, original, but I think my parents really taught me to work hard. And that's definitely what is needed, right? I think I got where I am today by working hard and wanting to do well in it didn't matter what I did, right? I wanted to be very good, preferably the best at it. And on more business perspective, as you asked, well, I told you I was just 18 years old when I joined this company. It was just a part-time job. I was still studying. And one of these founders really took me under his wings, and I learned a lot about him, a lot from him. And I think the key thing for me is to empower other people. We say in our company, if you're good enough, you're old enough. That's something that we live by still today. And that's why people join us. They love to get this responsibility and not be stuck because they don't have the age or the experience. If they prove they can do something, if they want to be challenged, well, this is the place for them. And I think that's a kind of culture that we have built, that we have learned, that I have learned or inherited from him. And that's now really part of our culture. And I've seen him doing it with me, right? He was pushing me all the time to take responsibility, to go outside of my comfort zone. That's one of the ways now I think many people joined us and felt this and stuck with us and are now, our leadership team is also pretty young. Many of them grew up within our company because of this attitude and culture that we've built.
That's really interesting. So, it hints to, a great retention strategy. If someone feels empowered and they're continuously challenged, they're going to stick with you. Have you found that you've been able to have a, very high retention among your employees?
Yes, exactly. We have, like I said, today I celebrated my 21st anniversary with the company. But last week we had somebody with 5, and the year before somebody with 5 years. And we got people already from the pre-Sana era with 15 and 20 years. Yes, many people like to stick around because they constantly get this, get challenged. And that's also the benefit of a growing company, right? You can always, there's always opportunity to take on a new adventure because, we're entering a new market. We recently opened an office in Dubai, for instance. Wow, that's a new adventure for a few people that would like to reallocate and attack that market, basically. So yes, we see high retention. This is definitely one of the key reasons for that.
And there's a certain segment of our audience and a fairly sizable segment, who are entrepreneurs. And so this last question that I ask, I typically, get some good engagement on. And could you share with us, along your journey, building the company, could you share with us, maybe a challenging time you faced and how you were able to deal with it and overcome it.
Yeah, I think it's a good question considering the challenging times. I mean, we're, to be honest, very lucky to be in the e-commerce space. I know not all the entrepreneurs are that lucky, right? I know many businesses are impacted, and that makes me think back of 2008, of course, with the crisis that started around that time, and I remember us underestimating the impact that it would have on our business, because we thought we're online, we're the online business that companies will continue to invest in e-commerce and such things. But we learned the hard way that wasn't really the case, and big companies got impacted and they significantly reduced their investments. And because we're just a services company, we got impacted quite a bit. But that was also the triggering event for us, rethinking our business. Say, hey, do we want to be this dependent on customers' New Year's budgets, right? And that also got us to start thinking about having our own IP and building more a recurring business model. And around that time, we had a tough time. We had to take some measures to keep us in the safe zone. But also, we put our best people that we had in building the Ecommerce product. And that's now by far the biggest part of our overall business. The services business still exists, but Ecommerce is a few factors bigger. So, what I would say as encouraging words, especially for the entrepreneurs who might face a tough time now, is out of these hard times can come, great things. I think many more big successful businesses started around 2008. But of course, you need to be smart, but you also maybe this time need to be bold. This is a great time probably to hire great talent. So there's definitely also an opportunity, while this is a tough time for probably, I can imagine, for many entrepreneurs as well. Looking back on it, 2008 was a very tough time for us, but the best thing that could happen, because it was a wake-up call, we changed things. We put a lot of risk also. We took a big risk putting our best people in developing the Ecommerce product, but it worked out really well for us. So that hopefully that inspires other entrepreneurs who might listen to this podcast.
Well, that's a great note to end on, facing a tough time and the willingness to take the risk to seize potentially an even bigger opportunity, which you've successfully done at Ecommerce. So, Michiel, thank you so much for your time. I know this conversation will be very insightful for our audience.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me again, and hope to be of help to some listeners. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you.